The scandal began not in a pulpit or on a stage, but inside the confined space of car, where a viral video allegedly showing Pastor Aaron Williams sitting with a woman who was not his wife detonated across the internet like a bomb. In a world where smartphones have become the most powerful tools of exposure, the footage spread at lightning speed, igniting outrage, disbelief, and demands for answers from both church members and critics of megachurch culture. Within hours of its release, the video became the center of conversation in gospel circles, spilling into mainstream discourse and forcing uncomfortable questions about leadership, morality, and accountability. Before long, even those who had never heard of Pastor Williams found themselves drawn into the unfolding storm, sharing opinions, theories, and judgments as the scandal took on a life of its own. And if you're following the story closely, make sure you like, comment, and subscribe so you don't miss the deeper updates that keep shaping it. What began as a single clip quickly became a lightning rod for years of speculation, suspicion, and resentment simmering beneath the polished image of one of the most influential church leaders in his region. The details of the video itself were simple but devastating. It showed Pastor Williams in the driver's seat, leaning close to a woman who was clearly not his wife. Eyewitnesses who later spoke to local reporters claimed there was more than casual familiarity between the two. Their body language, smiles, and the casual way they interacted suggested a closeness that went beyond pastoral counseling or professional acquaintance. In a religious community where leaders are expected to model the highest standard of integrity, this glimpse into his private life struck like an earthquake. The church's moral foundation had been shaken not by doctrine or theology, but by the raw power of perception. In many congregations, leaders often remind their members that avoiding the appearance of wrongdoing is as important as avoiding the act itself. This moment embodied that principle in the worst way possible, leaving his supporters with a haunting question. If their leader was comfortable in such a situation, what else had remained hidden? Months before the scandal broke wide open, subtle hints and cryptic posts had already primed followers for trouble. Social media detectives, always eager to piece together a mystery, dug into old Instagram captions, ambiguous tweets, and uncharacteristic absences. Some fans recalled posts from both Pastor Williams and his wife that hinted at strain, messages about trust being tested, storms in the spirit, and God removing masks. While these could easily have been read as vague spiritual reflections, in hindsight, they seemed like breadcrumbs leading to the dramatic exposure. The online world thrives on such clues, and once the video dropped, people rushed to stitch together a narrative that confirmed their suspicions. This cycle, anticipation, exposure, confirmation, is a hallmark of modern scandal culture. The moment the video hit the web, everything people thought they knew suddenly felt validated. Eyewitness accounts only deepened the storm. A couple from the congregation claimed they had seen the pastor with the same woman before, exiting a restaurant late in the evening and walking closely together. Another witness described them laughing intimately during a charity event months earlier. Though none of these accounts offered proof of wrongdoing, the cumulative effect was damning. In a culture where perception can be as destructive as reality, each recollection added fuel to the narrative that this was not an isolated moment caught on tape, but part of a longer story unfolding behind the scenes. Social media turned what might have been a local church crisis into a global spectacle. Within hours, hashtags began trending. Hashtag Pastor Williams scandal, hashtag church truths, and hashtag accountability now. YouTube commentators released hour-long breakdowns of footage. Twitter users posted frame-by-frame analyses, and Facebook groups flooded with debates that blurred the lines between gossip and theology. Social media thrives on conflict, and this scandal delivered the perfect storm. An influential leader, moral questions, and enough ambiguity to let every viewer project their own interpretation. The speed of online discourse meant that within 24 hours, the narrative had already spun out of control of the church leadership. What had once been confined to whispered pew conversations was now dissected on TikTok live streams and Instagram reels. Memes and reaction videos amplified the story beyond its original circle. Images of pastors juxtaposed with luxury cars and captions like "Caught in the Spirit of Temptation" circulated widely. Comedians posted skits mocking the scenario, while reaction channels drew hundreds of thousands of views simply by replaying the footage and gasping into the camera. For critics of organized religion, the scandal became a ready-made case study for hypocrisy. The viral nature of this content ensured that Pastor Williams' name was no longer just associated with sermons and baptisms, but with ridicule, jokes, and public humiliation. Once a scandal becomes meme-worthy, it rarely fades quickly. Instead, it embeds itself into popular culture as shorthand for failure. The identity of the woman in the video remained a mystery, which only fueled speculation. Some claimed she was a church member. Others believed she was a professional acquaintance. And conspiracy theories suggested she might even have been planted to entrap the pastor. The lack of clarity meant gossip spread unchecked. For every person who cautioned patience and fairness, dozens more filled the void with unverified claims. In the absence of confirmed information, imagination became reality. The longer the silence dragged on, the more entrenched these stories became, cementing perceptions that may or may not align with the truth. Church leadership soon found themselves under immense pressure. Calls for transparency grew louder as congregants demanded answers. Should the pastor step aside temporarily? Should an independent investigation be launched? What mechanisms, if any, did the church have in place to address misconduct? The longer leadership hesitated, the more the community saw silence as complicity. For a ministry that had long prided itself on accountability and openness, the contrast was stark. The crisis forced leaders to confront an uncomfortable reality. Modern congregations expect the same level of transparency from their churches as they do from corporations or public institutions. Failure to deliver it not only risks members' trust, but also undermines the credibility of the gospel message itself. The scandal's impact on reputation was immediate and measurable. Attendance began to decline, donations slowed, and longtime members admitted privately that they were reconsidering their commitment. In communities where churches rely heavily on the financial support of members, such shifts can be devastating. Beyond finances, the real cost lay in fractured trust. Once a congregation begins to doubt the integrity of its shepherd, the bonds that hold the flock together weaken. Restoring that trust is often far harder than maintaining it in the first place. Insiders whispered that this incident might not have been a one-off. Some suggested that similar rumors had circulated in the past, but were quietly dismissed or brushed under the rug. If true, this pointed to a systemic issue within the church's leadership structure, one where problems were handled privately rather than confronted openly. Such a pattern, if confirmed, would suggest a culture of silence that prioritizes image over truth. History is replete with similar patterns, from high-profile televangelist scandals of the 1980s to recent megachurch controversies that revealed decades of cover-ups. The echoes were impossible to ignore, and they raised the stakes of how this crisis would be handled. Ultimately, the long-term fallout depends less on the video itself and more on the response that follows. Will the church choose transparency, acknowledging mistakes and committing to reforms? Or will it retreat into defensiveness, blaming outsiders and minimizing the damage? Transparency could offer a painful but redemptive path, demonstrating that accountability is possible even at the highest levels of leadership. Denial, on the other hand, risks deepening cynicism and accelerating decline. Congregants may forgive human weakness, but they rarely forgive arrogance or obfuscation. The choices made now will shape not only Pastor Williams' legacy, but the trajectory of the entire church community for years to come. This scandal is more than a story about one man in a car. It is a reflection of the fragile relationship between perception, truth, and faith in the digital age. Visible misconduct, whether proven or not, erodes trust at lightning speed. Social media ensures that private failures are amplified into public spectacles. The only effective antidote is timely transparency and meaningful accountability, which can help contain speculation and preserve credibility. Churches must establish clear oversight and ethical response protocols if they wish to maintain the trust of their communities in an era of relentless scrutiny. Balanced reporting and due process are equally vital, protecting both leaders and congregants from the dangers of gossip-driven justice. The lesson from this saga is stark. Institutions built on moral authority cannot afford to take trust for granted. When leaders falter, their actions reverberate far beyond their own lives, shaking the faith of countless others. In Pastor Williams' case, the video may have been short, but its impact will be long-lasting. Whether this moment becomes a cautionary tale of downfall or a story of accountability and redemption depends on what happens next. And as this story continues to evolve, make sure you stay connected by liking, commenting, and subscribing so you don't miss the unfolding consequences of a scandal that refuses to fade quietly into the background.